Leo nitawaambia vile watoto wa diaspora wanapoteza na culture zao, vile wanakaa wanaishi majuu. I think that that's right, and it is not written on this piece of paper. But what the topic of the day is, what that translation is, today I will be telling y'all how the diasporan children lose their culture while living abroad. Now, for context of this conversation, I am Kenyan. I am a diasporan. I came here when I was 4. So, this can apply to you if you're from anywhere. But I had 3 different ways in which they lose their culture. And within this video, I'm going to be talking to the parents as well. Because it's your responsibility as a parent to make sure that your kids don't lose their culture. Let's start. Number 1. Namba moja. Tutaongea na Swahili. Namba moja. Wanasahau kuongea lugha zao. What that is they forget how to speak their language. Now, language is probably the most core pillar of any culture. Language is how you translate love, hate, anger, excitement, anything. Any emotion that you would want to translate is through the language, right? And that's why when you try to translate certain phrases from your mother language to English, or from English to the other language, it doesn't sit well, because that's where the culture sits. Delivery, tone, everything. That all makes a difference. Now, within the US specifically, because that's where I grew up, I would say that as a parent, you got to make sure that your kid has some structure in their daily life centered around their language. Because the world that they're growing up in as a diasporan kid dictates another language. Here is English. So, as a 4-year-old, when I go to my kindergarten class, my teacher's speaking to me in English. My friends are talking to me in English. Everything around me is in English. In order for me to communicate, can I go use the bathroom? Can I go do this? English, right? So, at that age, you can't comprehend the importance of your language and how that's going to be useful later on down in life, right? So that is the responsibility of a parent. If your child is, look at me not being, I don't even have one kid, but I'm talking to you parents as if I have kids. If your kid is under like teenage years, it's your responsibility, because they can't comprehend the importance of their language later on in life. Now, if your kid already speaks the language, it's your responsibility to make sure they exercise it. If they don't know it, it's your responsibility to teach them from scratch. So, we've established that. Now, it's also very important to know your language, because when you get around other people from your culture, even though you're a diasporan, there's a lot that transmits through language. And if you're left out, if you can't even understand, luckily I can understand at least like 70% of my language. But if you're left out and you can't comprehend anything, you're kind of like in the blues, and you're kind of just floating around. You can't relate to certain jokes. You can't pick up on certain tones or the tone in the room. If things are heavy, if things are light, you can't pick up on that because you're not picking up on the language. So there's also one more very important thing that I have to add to this. When you're a child growing up here, it is not cool to have an accent. I am I am culprit number 1 of coming here and having the most Kenyan accent ever, and suffering because you get made fun of your accent in school. Kids are like, "Why are you saying it like that?" Like, as a kid, you go through it. As an immigrant kid, you go through the heat. They make fun of your accent. They make fun of where you come from. They call you African this, that. All. We're not even gonna go into the insults, but just to get vulnerable with y'all, the most insulting insult I got was someone called me a skid mark. Y'all see this dark skin? Y'all know what a skid mark is? When a car goes skid. They called me a skid mark. They called me every name you could name in the book. So this is to tie back to losing your culture. You got to remember, as a parent, your kid is probably being made fun of for where they come from, whether that's India or China or Africa. Everybody gets cooked in school. You're getting cooked. It doesn't matter where you're from. So that can make a lot of kids try to steer as far away from where they come from than they should, because every time that they go out into the real world, they have to face these bullies and everything. So that's just context into how a kid will probably lose their language, which adds up to culture. We're gonna close up with that book right there. We don't need to go into all the insults, but looking back on it now, it's hilarious when you think of the type of jokes that kids would give you. So my lips are getting dry. We're gonna go into the next pillar, because I said I'm gonna give you three. Nitawape watatu. That's number one. They lose their language because of their environment, and it's the responsibility of the parents to make sure that the language is retained. Number two, namba mbili, hawapendi chakula chao or chakula zao. This is me adding this in because I'm a fatty. Your boy likes to eat, and I love my food from my country. I love Kenyan food. That was a loud noise. I love Kenyan food to the max. This is so New York. I can't even finish talking. We're just gonna wait for the police to pass because this is loud. It's always something in this city. Where are you going, bro? Are you just like downstairs? Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, he's down there. It's an ambulance. It's an ambulance. Back to the topic. They lose touch with their food. They don't like their food anymore. Wapendi chakula zao, that's Swahili. They don't like their food. Now, me being a fatty, I think that like food might be the strongest pillar to culture. Like, let me not know how to speak Swahili, but if I didn't know how Kenyan food tasted and I didn't have the taste buds for it, some ugali and nyani and whatever you name it, you add it to the pot. I grew up here stuffing my face with ugali, githeri, mokimo, chapati, everything you could name, even the sausages. We had a Kenyan dude who started a business here around just Kenyan sausages. We call it padi sausages. If you're watching this, you probably know what padi sausages are. We love the taste of our food. And if I didn't grow up with that taste bud, with that familiarity to our spices and this, that, and the other, even here when I'm living in New York, because I'm not the best chef, I don't cook as much as I should. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you guys a sad confession. I don't think I've cooked ugali in New York since I moved here. I know. Calm down. It's not because I can't. It's because my ugali doesn't come out tasting proper. It comes out doughy. It comes out tasting like it rolled in sand. So what I'm gonna probably do a video where I just make ugali. But luckily, I grew up eating all my native foods, everything. Thank God my parents did not feed me American junk growing up, or American dishes. It doesn't have to be junk, just American dishes. Because if I didn't have the taste buds for my culture, I don't know how I can really say I'm Kenyan. I don't know. Food, I'm a fatty. I hope you guys can accept that. But food, you got to make sure your kid does not lose touch with their food. And the way you do that is by cooking it for them. I have to know how to cook my foods. So I'm gonna probably do some segments on this channel where I just try to make Kenyan food, and it's gonna be so bad, but you guys have to watch. I'm gonna probably call my mom and ask her to walk me through it. Number 3, this is the third way that your kids lose their culture. So we're gonna summarize. Number 1 is wanasahau kuongea lugha zao. They forget how to speak their language. Responsibility of you, the parent. Number 2, they lose touch with their food. They don't know what their food tastes like, or they don't even like their food. When I was growing up, me and my fatty Kenyan friends, we loved our food. There was some bratty Kenyan kids who hated ugali, and we couldn't understand it. I'm like, bro, I don't care how much ugali they give me. What type of nyama, what type of meat are we getting on the side plate? Like, I grew up so familiar with our taste buds that it's like, I don't care what the main staple is. If it's ugali, if it's rice, if it's this, that, and the other, just what type of meat are we getting on the plate, right? But there's some kids who grew up actually saying, like, I don't like ugali. And I'm like, ah! That hurt. Now, back to number two was they forget their food. Number one, they forget to speak their language. Number three, we're at the end. Hawana wase wa Kenya karibu now. Y'all hear that? Hawana wase karibu now. Hawana wase wa Kenya karibu now. They don't have any Kenyans around them. They don't have anybody from their community. If you're not from Kenya, you could be from any other country. If you don't grow up with... Yo, there's somebody with a drone recording me. What the hell? Yo! Hold on. I'm going to tell him come down. There's actually a drone watching me. This is creepy. Is it watching me? Or is it watching the... Yo, y'all think I'm playing. I'm going to turn the camera. This is an interesting video. Y'all look at this. There is a drone just chilling. I try to tell it come down, but it's not moving. That's creepy. And I'm trying to record the video. I hope this is not crooked. Okay, we're gonna go back to the video. This is funny. Number three. This has been the longest number three. Hawana wase wa Kenya karibu now. I think it's important for a kid growing up in a foreign country, away from their culture, away from their people, to have their community around them. The reason I say this is there's so much cultural norms that you can only learn from interacting and being around people of your culture. And I'm talking about people of your culture from all ages, like from the elders to the kids. There's a way you interact with them within every culture. I'm gonna give you guys an example. So I grew up in my community here in the U.S., the Kenyan community. It was church-based, so very strict to begin with, just because church, right? Church, we don't tolerate nonsense. But let alone the church, not strictness, just cultural norms that I learned growing up. It's like you'd be in a big gathering or someone's house with a lot of people, and there's elders sitting down or something, and there's a table in front of them. As a kid, I'm not walking past those elders. If I need to get something, I'm gonna walk around the table. You don't walk across elders. I learned that the hard way. I learned that from being, it's a party, it's casual, la 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 la. Jimmy runs across a bunch of elders, and I get yelled at. The whole party goes silent, and I'm just like, what did I do? But those are learning moments of cultural norms that you can only pick up on from being around people of your culture. Now, there was multiple situations growing up where a kid who didn't grow up around a bunch of Kenyans, that were more secluded, didn't have a big community around them, they would once in a while come around, and you would see them do things that are just seen as iffy or just seen as unculturally correct. They didn't have the adaptation to know how to interact verbally or just physically with elders and kids and this, that, and the other, and they were just doing the wrong things, right? So if a kid is not immersed within their culture, they're not immersed and surrounded by people who speak their language, people who understand the norms from where they come from, it makes them clash when they do have to interact with their people. Maybe is and the crazy thing is they probably don't see it as wrong. They're probably just operating in the typical American fashion. Just what they're doing in their eyes is just completely okay. But culturally, it may be incorrect. So that is the third topic. A kid loses their culture by not being surrounded by people from their country. Wanapoteza na watu wa Kenya. Wase wa Kenya karibu now. They're not close to Kenyans around them. That's for me, for my example, but from whatever country you're from, it could be the same exact case. If you want your kid to retain their culture, in my opinion, focus on three things. Number one, Oh my gosh, I think I just put up my middle finger. That was bad. Number one, hope uh, make sure that wasi sahau kuongea lugha zao. They don't forget to speak their language. Number two, make sure wanapenda kukula chakula zao. They like to eat their food. They're familiar with their food palette and their cultural palette, their cultural spices, the way that they're supposed to eat with their hands. Make sure that they don't see that as taboo and ew, why are you eating with your hands? No, they gotta make sure that they know how to eat their food. That's coming from a fat boy. I may not be physically fat, but the amount of food I could consume, crazy. Number three, make sure your kids wakona watu wake karibu now. Make sure your kids have their people around them. Make sure, even if you're not plugged into a Kenyan church, for example, in my example, if you're a Kenyan kid, if you have a Kenyan child and you're not necessarily plugged into a local Kenyan community church or anything, make sure that they have some Kenyan friends around them. They need to pick up on certain things and make sure that they're familiar with understanding cultural norms. That is the end of this video. It's been hectic. We had a drone watching me. We had a, what's it called, ambulam. And now we are closing this up. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you all, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.